Feels good to be back, baby. Ladies and gentlemen, it is me, Swear, and thank you for once again stepping back into my corner. You know, now that I'm back at home from uni for the summer break, I thought I would shoot one last video in the original Swear's corner before I move. Now, I'm not sure if this comes across, but I am a little bit ill, so my apologies if my voice does sound a bit off in this video. But we're gonna power through, we're gonna have a great time, and this is gonna be a great video. Let's get on with it, shall we? Now, you've probably seen the title of this video, and a large number of you watching are probably extremely mad at me and confused with why I've said what I've said. But just bear with me. I truly believe that it's always better to watch the movie or the TV show first and then read the books afterwards. Now, behind me are a few books that I've recently read, and two of these books form the foundation of the case that I'm trying to lay in front of you today. One of those books is Looking for Alaska by John Green, and the other is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. Both of these are truly fascinating stories that I really enjoyed reading, and I highly recommend. These books deal with ideas of loneliness, coming of age, growth, love, adventure. These are truly two very good books that I highly recommend reading. Now, Looking for Alaska not too long ago was adapted into a mini-series, and Where the Crawdads Sing recently released their own movie. Now, if I was to summarize this video into a few words, the reason that one should always watch the film or the TV before reading the book is because of expectations. One of these books I read before watching the adaptation, and the other I watched the adaptation before reading the book. One experience I thoroughly enjoyed, and the other left me feeling a little bit disappointed. At the beginning of this year, I accidentally stumbled upon the Hulu miniseries Looking for Alaska, and I had nothing else to do, so I binged watched the entire series in about a day, and then I was really excited to read the book. I wanted to know where this idea came from. I wanted to expand my knowledge on this world that was displayed to me on the screen. And I thoroughly enjoyed the show. I thought it was beautiful and honest and raw. I wanted to actually make a video about it, but I didn't know the exact angle from which I wanted to discuss the TV show that I watched. And I suppose in time things figure themselves out, because here we are talking about Looking for Alaska now. But I went into the show when I watched it with zero expectations. I had no idea what I was getting into, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was beautiful. I was taken on this roller coaster. You know, and at times I was able to surmise where the story was going, but at the same time the series kept me really gripped and entertained, and I thoroughly enjoyed. And then I read the book, and it was as if the floodgates to this kingdom that I'd only briefly visited were opened. That was my experience with Looking for Alaska. And then we have Where the Crawdads Sing. I did the exact opposite for this story. The trailer for this movie came out, and I was thoroughly gripped by the story, I'll say. And so before watching the movie, I decided I'll go out, buy the book, read the story, and then after that, I will watch the film. And as of now, Where the Crawdads Sing is probably one of my favorite novels that I've ever read. You know, it's incredibly, like I said, it's lonely and painful and melancholic, but there's also a raw, natural beauty to it that shines through this story from cover to cover. And so when I finished reading the book, I couldn't have been more excited to see how these words were translated into real life and onto the screen. And I don't want to say that I was disappointed, because overall the movie was okay. You know, obviously I expected there to be changes and slight differences, you know, between the book and the movie, because that's, you know, you can't include everything in the movie that's from the book. And I was okay with that. But I can't help but feel when I finished the movie, I did feel a little bit underwhelmed. I felt as though the film did a half-assed job at telling this story that has incredible depth to it. You know, and I'm not calling anyone out. I'm sure that one, it's extremely difficult to adapt a book, and two, I'll give the filmmakers the benefit of the doubt that they tried their best to adapt this incredible story. Overall, when the credits rolled at the end of the movie, I did feel a little bit let down. And I think that's no fault of the filmmakers at all, but because reading this book and allowing it to bubble in my imagination, and then wanting to see what that looks like on the big screen afterwards, there was only room for the movie to disappoint me. With the expectations that I built up in my head through reading this novel, I don't think there was any room for success. And that's how I feel about all film book adaptations. I've done a few videos on Life of Pi, and I've read the book to Life of Pi, and I only read it after I had seen the movie. I cannot imagine how disappointed I could have been. I don't think I would have been disappointed, but I can imagine that if I had read the book before I had seen the movie, chances are I would have been disappointed. With Looking for Alaska, I can appreciate both entities, that being the book and the series, individually. I'm able to create a separation line between the two. I don't know about you, but it takes me a while to read books. This one took me a few weeks, and when you sit on the same thing for such a long time, you build a certain kind of attachment to it. And if something like a film adaptation tries to match the energy of the experience you had while reading the book, typically, in my experience, it cannot be met. It cannot be matched, and that's no fault of anyone. I probably believe that if I had seen the film before I had read the book, I would have thoroughly enjoyed it. But it's a thing of, because I know exactly what the story's supposed to be from reading all of its details in the book, when I watch the film, and this is not me trying to nitpick, but when I watch the film, it always feels hollow. And I'm not talking about this book just in particular. I'm talking about whenever I read a book and then watch its movie, it always feels hollow, like it's missing something. And maybe that's on me. Maybe that's something I have to change about my perception and how I analyze film adaptations, Like not too long ago, I bought the Lord of the Rings books because I am a diehard Lord of the Rings fan, but I've never read the books. But I am a huge fan of the movies. I am thankful that I watched the movies first, because now with the experience that I've had with these books and several other books in the past, I would be afraid that if I read the books first and then watched the movies, I would be disappointed. If I was to create an analogy around all of this, it would be that the film or TV show adaptation is the main course. And if you read the book afterwards, it's almost like you're getting some form of dessert, some form of reward for caring about this world so much that you want to get more out of it. Whereas if you first read the book and then watch the film, it's almost like having your main course and then having a starter after that. It's a very weird experience, like you're getting less than what you expected out of the meal. I'm hoping that all of this makes sense. Knowing me, I ramble a lot, so there's a chance that none of this makes sense and I'm just talking out of my ass. So I'm hoping that it all makes sense. Another story that pops into mind is something like Harry Potter. For the first 16, 18 years of my life, I was the biggest Harry Potter fan. I had never read the books, but I was a diehard fan of the movies, and I had seen them almost every day for my whole life. And then this time last year, I sat down and I read all the books. And it was like I was just being treated to this extra entree to a meal that I had already eaten. It felt like my dedication was being rewarded in a sense. And I can't help but feel that if I read the books and then went to see the movies, because there's a lot that gets left out of the movies, I feel like if I watched it book to movie, I would have been slightly disappointed. And that's no fault of anyone's. I feel like reading the book first sets you up for disappointment. It sets you up for failure. Reading the book first forces you to create and imagine up a set of expectations for a film or for a TV show adaptation. And it's almost as if it's destiny for it to fail. Now, my throat is incredibly sore from all this rambling. Now, I'm assuming that when you clicked onto this video, you thought I was crazy. But I'm hoping that now that I've rambled on for a while, that it all makes sense and you hate me a little bit less, and maybe you can see my point of view on this. I am truly excited to read your comments on this video and this idea and what I've spoken about, because I haven't really spoken about this really to anyone. So please leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm really curious to read them. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you've been here for a minute, if you've been seeing a couple videos, come on, do your boy a solid. Like and subscribe. Once again, it has been your boy Swear, and thank you for stepping back into my corner for one last video. It has been fantastic talking to you guys about this, and I will see you in the next one.
I am a firefly. You'll see hundreds beckoning far into the dark reaches of the marsh. And that's where you will always find me. Way out yonder, where the crawdads sing.